moon phases absolutely impact ice fishing. In dark moons, I catch a lot of big walleyes in the middle of the day. And then during a full moon, even with a little bit of snow, there's a lot of activity. And people will even tell me, I'm not catching any fish. I caught all these fish before the full moon came through. Those walleyes aren't there. They went shallower. They're sneaking around because it's full moon time and they feed hard. Everything does. It changes everything, but it also, I think there's more insect life and activities that bring crappies, and it schools fish, moves them around a little bit, but I think it makes it better for us anytime we're getting close to a full moon or after.
I've seen it in the middle of February where it's terrible fishing, and all of a sudden you get towards that full moon and the fish are just snapping. I've sat out there till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 in the morning when rattle reels are going off nonstop. And huge believer in moon phases underneath the ice for sure. If you've ever spent time in a wheelhouse or overnight in a house during those full moon periods, it's pretty magical.
Especially in clear water. I think the impact of a bright full moon on relatively dark, thin ice, it's pretty impactful. That light shows through no matter what people say. And in clear water, just like in the summer, again, I've experienced times where nighttime feeding is what they do. And a little bit of moonlight can change a feeding pattern and shut the day bite off altogether, and also keep fish in the depths. I mean, that's the big thing in these areas where there's a lot of deep water and it's clear. They're just gonna hang out in the depths most of the day. They won't come shallow till there's a light advantage for them to do so. So I can think of a number of lakes in northern Minnesota where the fishing only gets better after dark.
If you read your master anglers in the back of Fisherman, it shows you plus or minus moon phases. And it'll tell you how many days it was caught within a new moon or a full moon. And the records don't lie that the majority of records are caught within 3 days of a new moon or full moon, because they keep records on. So people who don't keep records don't know. So I tell my seminar audience, like, if you don't believe in moon phases, that's fine, don't believe in it. But take note of when the fish bite and when the bite is happening, and then go home and compare it to the calendar and when the bite was supposed to be happening. I guarantee it's within an hour accurate of your bite either started an hour before, maybe because of local weather, or an hour later because of local weather, but the window is real close, and that window, the way it shifts on those calendars, like the bite will get later and later in the day, it'll go from a morning bite through an afternoon bite to an evening bite. And that shift is key to watching, and it's all about where the moon is. And so moon overhead is that's when the bite happens, and moon underfoot is when the bites really happen. Moon rise is pretty good, but it's nothing like overhead and underfoot bites. In my experience, my notes tell me moon overhead is when the key bites. So when you see a peak time on your calendar and a minor time, those peak and minors are coinciding with moon overfoot and moon underfoot. So moonrise comes together with a sun, like a moonrise and a sunset, like that's golden, like that's a golden hour, but it's because the moon is rising when the sun is setting, and that's usually a full moon. And it'll do the same on a new moon, but you won't see the moon. The moon will rise on the other side of the earth, or in the dark, whatever, it's in the shade. So you'll see the moonrise on your calendar, but the fish activity will come with it.
When you look at the world records, there's some correlation between world record catches and moon phases. In saltwater, you see a lot of tides and impacts on tides, and I'll actually use moon phases more in saltwater. But bottom line is, when I'm fishing in freshwater and I'm ice fishing, I go when I get a chance to go. I don't look at the moon, I don't look at activity levels, I don't do anything. I just go out and fish and let the fish tell me what to do.
I think there's a lot to moon phases, and you really see it on muskies, lake trout even. Bigger the predator, the more it seems to be a factor. And I think the other thing I think that happens is a lot of underwater currents in a lot of these big lakes, especially, or these flowages, where you don't really have a lot of water coming and going, but yet there's current, and the current pulses. Where you'll get an hour where the current's stronger than an hour where it softens up, and I think that's what this moon phase thing is really all about. And there's definitely something to it. Now, a lot of times I'll look at the major and minor and I'll you know, if possible, I'll try to land on some of my best spots during that time. And, you know, a lot of times if it's, you know, 3 o'clock or 10 o'clock, I'll make sure that I'm, you know, somewhere where I think I need to be versus just being way off in left field trying, you know, really reaching. But with that being said, you know, as a guide, you know, I had to fish every day. And if it was gonna be a tough day, I didn't want to know at 6 in the morning. You know, I just, you know, so sometimes I just didn't follow it probably as much as I should have. And the other thing too is you want to be booked every day, right? You have to guide every day to make a living at it. And so I just didn't want to have people just booking during full moon periods or booking during new moon periods, whatever it was. You know, I want to try to figure out how to catch fish every day. And I think with panfish, smaller fish, walleyes, you know, it's probably not as detrimental as the big fish.
Oh, I think they matter all the time. You know, full moon on a lake that doesn't have any snow on it, I think is going to be a bad deal for them, a worse deal. It's not, doesn't mean you can't catch fish, but it's going to be harder fishing. If you're wanting to fish during the day, you don't want a bright moon and glass clear ice, you know, because I think just like in the summer, they're going to eat all night, and it might take till afternoon until they're hungry again. So it just makes for a little bit tougher deal there. I don't think anybody should, you know, decide to go on a trip or not go on a trip based on moon. I think it's less of a factor for ice fishing, but I do think it's still a factor.
All wildlife seems to have a little bit more generated activity during the proper moon phase. You know, whether it's deer, whether it's several different animals, probably all animal life really, but fish are no different, you know, and they're going to be active during some of these phases. But I still truly believe that the best time to go fishing is when you can.
I've been out there at times, and it's been clockwork. You know, moonrise, moonset, at times new moons. It can definitely have an impact on catching some of the biggest fish of the season, and it can also be the exact opposite. You can think everything's going to be great, and it can be very, very disheartening. So it's fishing. You know, I mean, do I believe in it? Yes. I'm going to be out there irregardless in the dark, setting up. So it doesn't matter when the moon is rising and moon is setting almost every day. We're going to be out there, you know. So, you know, that's the hardest challenge, is trying to figure out how to catch them, you know, during those non-peak times, that moonrise, moonset, you know, if you can scrap out, you know, a few fish. But it does have an impact, in my opinion. You know, you've seen it at times, just where boom, 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 stuff's firing, and you can look at, okay, well, when was moonrise? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It was a good morning bite versus a slow afternoon bite, you know? And that's predictable stuff, but guess what? You can go back there the very next morning, or you could go back there 2 weeks later or a month later under the same conditions, and it would just can be the exact opposite. If you fish long enough, you know that, you know, nothing is usually ever going to be exactly the same on a lot of bodies of water you're fishing, so.
I don't. I mean, so it doesn't, to me, I can't be like, oh, hey, it's full moon, great, cool. Hey kids, look, you know, like that's what that kind of means to me. I know it's funny, but like, hey, it's full moon tonight. I really don't transpose it to fishing, because it doesn't matter. Like when I'm working, it doesn't matter what the weather, what the moon, what my next door neighbor did. I still have to go out and do the best I can. And I think with ice fishing, the moon phases may just affect it a lot less. You know, obviously, bright moon, the fish can see, they maybe eat a little bit more, but fish are fish, they're still gonna have to eat, and I just prefer not to waste any time staring at a moon phase calendar, you know? I would rather drill holes and find fish, you know?
I always make fun of John Hoyer. I don't know if, you know, John is truly a phenom when it comes to fishing. Skill level wise, he's awesome, and he's one of the best anglers that I know. But John's really tied into moon phases and stuff. And it's when he comes and shoots a show with us, we're constantly teasing him. Hey John, what time does the phase start? When are we supposed to be starting to catch them? Hey John, that phase started a half hour ago. How come I'm not catching them? And you know, it's like, so, but then again, sometimes when he says they're gonna bite, we catch them good. So it is what it is, you know.